Have you ever noticed how the quietest person in the room often holds the most power? Why do the most influential people rarely show off what they know? And what if I told you that playing dumb might actually be the smartest strategy for success? Before we unlock this surprising secret, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to join the journey of mastering self-improvement through timeless wisdom. Now, let's dive into Schopenhauer's subtle yet powerful strategy that could change the way you play the game of life. 1. The hidden power of underplaying yourself. Arthur Schopenhauer, though often known for his pessimistic view of human nature, had a surprisingly empowering insight when it came to personal success. Don't reveal all your strength at once. In a world that constantly encourages us to stand out, to prove ourselves, and to compete loudly for recognition, Schopenhauer suggested the opposite. He believed that there is great advantage in being underestimated, in playing it small, quiet, and reserved until the moment is right. This idea isn't about self-sabotage or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about strategic restraint. It's about understanding that your talents and intelligence don't need to be broadcast to everyone at all times. In fact, doing so might actually work against you. When you underplay yourself, you lower expectations. And when expectations are low, everything you do well seems extraordinary. This is one of the oldest and most effective psychological tools in human behavior, the element of surprise. Think of how surprising it is when someone you overlook turns out to be brilliant. That shift in perception creates an emotional impact. It makes people remember you not because you were loud, but because you were quietly exceptional. Schopenhauer's perspective closely mirrors the wisdom of Sun Tzu, who wrote, "All warfare is based on deception." And though life isn't a battlefield, navigating human relationships, workplaces, and opportunities often requires a similar level of calculation. Sun Tzu also said, "Appear weak when you are strong." This principle teaches us to avoid premature exposure of our strengths, not because we fear others, but because we understand that the timing of revelation is often more powerful than the revelation itself. In practical terms, imagine you're starting a new job. Most people walk and try to impress, speak up in every meeting, and prove their worth immediately. But what happens when someone enters quietly, listens more than they speak, observes the dynamics of the group, and only speaks when they have something truly valuable to say? That person earns a different kind of respect. A quieter, more solid respect, one based on substance, not noise. Now consider this. When you come across as too knowledgeable, too dominant, or too eager to display your intelligence, people may start to feel threatened. Whether consciously or not, they may push back, compete with you, or subtly try to diminish your presence. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your visibility triggered their own insecurities. By contrast, the one who downplays their strengths often moves freely, unnoticed, untouched. They aren't perceived as competition, and that's the space where they can grow, observe, and strike when the time is right. Underplaying yourself also brings another advantage. It buys you time to learn, to prepare, to sharpen your edge in silence. When people don't expect much from you, you're free to work without the burden of pressure or constant judgment. You can take risks, make mistakes, and improve under the radar. And when you're finally ready to reveal what you've built or mastered, you'll do so without resistance, because no one saw it coming. There's also a deeper inner benefit to this mindset: ego control. Many people reveal too much too soon because their ego craves validation. They want others to know how smart or capable they are. But Schopenhauer reminds us that this hunger for praise is often a weakness. True confidence doesn't need constant reinforcement. It's content to be misunderstood for a while, knowing that truth will eventually surface. In fact, humility in the short term often leads to greater authority in the long run. When people realize that you were capable all along, but chose not to flaunt it, they don't just respect your skill, they respect your character. This principle plays out in many areas of life: business, relationships, leadership, and even friendships. The quiet friend who's always observing may one day offer the most profound advice. The colleague who rarely speaks may suddenly solve a major problem. The entrepreneur who keeps their project quiet for months may launch something that changes the game. And when that happens, no one forgets it. So what does this mean for you? It means stop feeling like you have to impress people right away. Stop giving away your brilliance for free to win approval. Instead, learn the room, read people, understand the game being played around you. Then, when the moment is right, let your actions speak. Because when you've been underestimated and then you over-deliver, you don't just earn respect, you shock the system. And sometimes that shock is all it takes to open doors that were once closed, to silence doubters, and to claim success you quietly built while everyone else was busy trying to be seen. As Schopenhauer might say, power often belongs not to the one who shows the most, but to the one who waits the longest before showing anything at all. 2. The intelligence of silence. Arthur Schopenhauer, though often remembered for his pessimistic outlook on life, had a deep understanding of human behavior and social intelligence. One of his most underrated yet powerful teachings is the value of silence. In a world where noise dominates, social media, non-stop opinions, constant chatter, Schopenhauer urged us to recognize the quiet strength of listening. Why did he place so much importance on silence? Because silence is where observation begins. It's where understanding deepens. And most importantly, it's where leverage is created. In any conversation, the person who listens more holds an unseen advantage. They aren't just hearing words. They're analyzing tone, emotion, intention. They're picking up on subtle cues, inconsistencies, and unspoken truths. Every moment of silence is a chance to gather insight, while others, eager to speak, often reveal more than they intend. Schopenhauer recognized this dynamic. He understood that people often talk not to communicate, but to validate themselves. Most of the time, when someone listens, they're simply waiting for their turn to speak. But that's not true listening. That's performance. The wise do it differently. They listen to understand, not to reply. They hold back their opinions until they've gathered enough information to offer something meaningful. And when they do speak, their words carry more weight, not because they're louder, but because they're rare and intentional. Let's break this down. Silence is strategic. When you stay silent, you give yourself the gift of space. Space to think, space to evaluate, space to let others reveal themselves first. In conversations, most people rush to prove a point or share their story. They fear silence because it feels awkward. But the one who is comfortable in silence gains a powerful edge. They seem calm, in control, and deliberate. They don't need to fill the air with noise to feel valuable. This kind of self-control is rare, and it commands respect. Think of a negotiation. The person who speaks too much often gives away their position, their desires, or their desperation. But the one who pauses, who listens, who speaks slowly and sparingly, they create mystery. They build tension. They keep others guessing. That's not weakness. That's power. Listening builds relationships. Another reason Schopenhauer favored silence is that it naturally builds better relationships. People love to be heard. In fact, most people don't want advice. They just want someone to truly listen. When you give someone your full attention, without interrupting, without jumping in with your own story, they feel seen. And in today's world, where everyone is trying to be noticed, giving someone the gift of your silence is rare and valuable. They will walk away from the conversation thinking you were interesting, even if you barely spoke. Why? Because you made them feel important. You created a space where they could express themselves. And in doing so, you built trust. Silence is not empty. It's full of presence. Speaking less, saying more. Have you ever noticed how the person who speaks the least in a group meeting often gets the most attention when they do decide to speak? That's not a coincidence. It's the power of contrast. When someone is always talking, people tune them out. Their words lose impact because they're constant. But when someone who's usually quiet finally adds their voice, everyone listens. The silence that came before makes their words ring louder. This is why timing matters. Schopenhauer believed that words should be used like tools, not toys. Every word should serve a purpose. Every comment should be made with thought, not just emotion. And when we wait, when we listen, we gain the clarity to speak precisely when it counts. That's when words become powerful. Silence reveals wisdom. Wise people are not wise because they always have something to say. They are wise because they know when to say it. They have nothing to prove. Their silence isn't shyness, it's choice. They don't waste time arguing over things that don't matter. They don't speak to impress others. They understand that speaking without listening is like running without direction. It might make noise, but it goes nowhere. They stay quiet long enough to understand the whole picture. And once they do, their words land with clarity, confidence, and conviction. Schopenhauer would argue that most conflicts could be avoided if people simply listened more and spoke less. Many arguments spiral out of control not because of the content, but because no one is truly hearing the other side. Everyone's too busy defending themselves. But the one who listens, they gain insight. And insight leads to influence, the modern application. In our current world, dominated by tweets, comment sections, and constant communication, silence feels uncomfortable. We're encouraged to have an opinion on everything, to respond instantly, to always be engaged. But what if true strength lies in pulling back? What if the next time someone says something you disagree with, you pause instead of react? What if, instead of interrupting with your story, you ask another question and keep listening? What if you began to speak less, but when you did, your words actually meant something? In the age of noise, silence is revolutionary. It's not a lack of participation. It's a higher form of participation, one rooted in intention, depth, and intelligence. Schopenhauer wasn't telling us to stay quiet forever. He was teaching us how to speak with power, by speaking less and listening more. So the next time you enter a conversation, try this. Hold your thoughts for just a little longer. Listen like you have nothing to prove, and speak only when your words are rooted in understanding, not impulse. You'll be surprised how quickly silence becomes your greatest tool, and how much more people begin to listen when you finally speak. 3. Let others own the solution. Arthur Schopenhauer, a master of human psychology and behavior, believed that influence is not always about being the loudest voice in the room or the person with all the answers. In fact, one of the most powerful forms of leadership doesn't come from directing people. It comes from guiding them gently to find their own way. Helping others doesn't always mean offering a direct solution. More often, the best way to help is to lead someone toward the answer, while allowing them to believe they discovered it themselves. This kind of subtle guidance isn't manipulative. It's a form of quiet leadership, one that prioritizes growth, dignity, and collaboration over control. And those who master it are often the most respected, not because they impose their will, but because they create the conditions for others to grow. Why we rush to give answers? It's natural to want to help. When someone shares a problem, our instinct is to offer advice, to jump in with a solution, to show that we care by fixing it for them. But here's the hidden danger. Constantly providing answers can actually disempower others. It can make people feel like they're not smart enough to solve things on their own. Over time, it creates dependence and even resentment. The more we correct others, even with good intentions, the more we risk making them feel small. Schopenhauer understood this dynamic well. He warned against the habit of always needing to be right or show superiority in conversations. Not because accuracy doesn't matter, but because how we offer truth matters just as much as the truth itself. People don't respond well to being corrected, especially in front of others. Even if you're right, constantly pointing out someone's mistakes damages their confidence and pride. It may win the argument, but it often loses the person. Empowerment over ego. Letting others own the solution means choosing empowerment over ego. It means setting aside the desire to be seen as the smart one so that someone else can experience the satisfaction of figuring it out. Think about how good it feels when you solve something on your own. That moment of realization, of clarity, of achievement. It's powerful. When you guide someone to that point without taking credit, you give them a gift far greater than just the answer. You give them confidence. And in return, they begin to see you not just as helpful, but as someone who respects their intelligence. That's how trust is built. That's how influence deepens. It's leadership without domination, wisdom without ego, direction without demand, the art of subtle guidance. This concept is often used in great teaching, coaching, and even parenting. The best mentors don't just feed information. They ask questions. They offer hints, create curiosity, and allow space for the learner to explore. They say things like, "What do you think would happen if you tried it this way?" "That's a good idea. How can we build on that?" Have you considered looking at it from this angle? Notice the language. It doesn't take over. It invites. This is not weakness. It's emotional intelligence. It requires patience, restraint, and a deep understanding of human nature. Most people want to be guided, not dragged. They want to feel like their voice matters, like their effort played a part in the solution. Schopenhauer would argue that you gain far more by letting others feel intelligent than by proving that you are. Real-world examples. In the workplace, this approach can completely transform team dynamics. A manager who always imposes their ideas may get short-term results, but over time, they discourage initiative. On the other hand, a leader who asks for input, who listens carefully, and who credits others for solutions, even if they guided the process, creates a team that's motivated, loyal, and capable. In relationships, the same principle applies. Constantly correcting your partner or insisting your way is better can lead to distance and resentment. But allowing your partner to express themselves, come to conclusions, and feel supported, even when you subtly help get them there, strengthens a bond. This is not about deception. It's about respect, about creating a space where people grow, not because you gave them the answer, but because you believe they were capable of finding it, when to step in and when to step back. Of course, there are moments when direct guidance is necessary. If someone is heading towards serious harm or making a critical error, stepping in clearly and confidently is the right thing to do. Leadership requires discernment, but outside of those urgent situations, learning when to step back can be even more valuable. The goal is not just to get things done. It's to help people become stronger, wiser, and more self-sufficient over time. Sometimes the best way to lead is to walk beside someone, not in front of them. The long-term payoff. When you practice this mindset consistently, the long-term rewards are profound. You build deeper trust with others. You become a respected presence, not a controlling one. People seek your guidance, not because they have to, but because they want to. And most importantly, you create a ripple effect of confidence, clarity, and growth that extends far beyond the original moment of help. Schopenhauer's message is subtle but powerful. True influence comes not from dominating others, but from helping them realize they never needed to be dominated at all. So the next time someone comes to you with a problem, pause before offering a solution. Ask a question instead of giving advice. Offer guidance without taking credit. And when they finally reach the answer on their own, celebrate quietly, knowing you help without needing recognition. Because in that moment, you didn't just solve a problem, you empowered a person. And that's the kind of leadership the world truly needs. 4. Success loves the quiet ones. In the age of social media, success often looks like being seen. Loud voices dominate. Flashy lifestyles are idolized, and people are praised not necessarily for their depth, but for their visibility. The message is clear. If you're not being noticed, you're being left behind. But Arthur Schopenhauer would challenge this belief. He believed that real power doesn't come from being loud. It comes from being prepared, from being patient, from building in silence. Because success, when it's real and lasting, doesn't need to announce itself. The illusion of noise. Let's face it, today's world worships attention. There's pressure to build a brand, to constantly showcase what you're doing, and to appear successful, even if you're still figuring things out. But this rush toward exposure creates a dangerous trap. The illusion of progress. You might look like you're doing well, but in reality, you're spending more time curating an image than developing true substance. Schopenhauer believed this kind of superficial recognition was hollow. He warned against chasing applause before you've built something worth applauding. Instead, he encouraged quiet preparation. To him, there was wisdom in working in silence, in letting your results do the talking. Because when you're quiet, you can focus without distraction. You can improve without pressure. You can fail without fear of judgment. And above all, you can grow without seeking permission. The strategic advantage of silence. When you stay quiet, people underestimate you. They assume you're not a threat. That gives you an advantage. Schopenhauer, like Sun Tzu before him, understood the power of strategic invisibility. When you don't reveal your strengths too early, you preserve your element of surprise. You hold your power until it truly matters. And when that moment comes, when you finally act, Your impact is far greater than it would have been if you had been making noise all along. It's the quiet ones who shock the world. Why? Because no one saw them coming. Build before you broadcast. There is nothing wrong with wanting recognition, but it should be a byproduct of your efforts, not the main goal. Schopenhauer would say, before you chase visibility, chase mastery. Build your craft. Sharpen your skills. Fail privately and learn deeply. Don't waste your energy trying to convince others of your worth. Use that energy to actually become worthy. When you focus on building before broadcasting, something powerful happens. Your silence becomes strength. It becomes discipline. And over time becomes respect. Earn respect, not beg for approval. The rise no one expected. History is full of people who stayed quiet while they worked and stunned the world when they were ready. Writers who spent years unpublished before releasing a masterpiece. Athletes who trained in obscurity before winning gold. Innovators who kept their project secret until they changed an industry. What they had in common was the patience to wait. They didn't need instant validation. They knew their moment would come. And when it did, they weren't just ready, they were undeniable. Schopenhauer would argue, it's better to rise once with real force than to constantly chase moments of shallow recognition. The underdog advantage. When you stay low-key, you earn the underdog advantage. People don't expect much from you, and that's a gift. Because when you do show what you're capable of, the contrast hit harder. Quiet progress is like a spring being compressed. The longer you hold it down, the more power it builds. And when released at the right moment, it launches. The loud often burn out. The quiet often build momentum. It's not about hiding. It's about timing. Let your work speak, not your ego. The ones who speak the loudest are often compensating. But those who move with quiet confidence, they don't need to prove anything to anyone. Their results speak for them. This is what Schopenhauer respected most. Humility paired with excellence. Not empty boasting, but quiet depth. Not showy gestures, but steady mastery. So while the world tells you to shout your story, Schopenhauer would urge you to write a story worth telling first. Then, when you finally speak, people will listen, not because you beg for attention, but because you earned it. Success doesn't always favor the loudest voice in the room. Sometimes, it quietly follows a person who is too busy working to make noise. In the end, the world remembers those who didn't just chase attention, but who deserved it when it came. So, resist the rush. Embrace the silence. Use it to sharpen yourself. Because when the time is right and you finally rise, the world won't just notice, it will be stunned. 5. Humility, the ultimate power move. When people succeed, their first instinct is often to broadcast it, to shout it from the rooftops, to let the world know they've made it. But Arthur Schopenhauer warned against this very urge. Not because success is something to hide, but because how you carry success speaks volumes about who you are. To Schopenhauer, humility wasn't just a virtue. It was a strategic power, one that separates the truly wise from the insecure pretenders. It is, in fact, the ultimate move after achievement. Why bragging backfires? Let's be honest. Bragging might feel good in the short term, but it rarely leaves a good impression in the long run. The moment someone starts flaunting their intelligence, wealth, or status, the energy in the room shifts. What once could have been admiration quickly turns into resistance, envy, or quiet dislike. That's because when you constantly remind others of your achievements, you're not just celebrating. You're often subtly placing yourself above them. And people feel that, even if they don't say it out loud. Schopenhauer understood human nature deeply. He knew that most people have a fragile relationship with their own self-worth. When you brag, even unintentionally, it threatens that delicate balance. It triggers comparison. It invites judgment. And ultimately, it puts a target on your back. So instead of building respect, bragging often builds resentment, the power of understated excellence. Now, consider the opposite. A person who has every reason to boast, but chooses not to. Someone who lets their actions speak louder than their words. Someone who remains grounded, even after reaching the top. What happens? People lean in. They admire. They respect. Not just for what that person has achieved, but for how they carry it. This is the power of humility. It's quiet, it's calm, and it's magnetic. People are drawn to confidence that doesn't need to be loud. There's something deeply attractive about someone who's accomplished much, but never makes you feel small in their presence. That's not just a personality trait. It's a form of emotional intelligence, confidence without arrogance. A common misunderstanding is that humility means hiding your strengths or being timid. That's not true at all. Real humility is confidence without arrogance. It's the ability to recognize your worth without making others feel worthless. It's being aware of your success, but not using it as a weapon or shield. It's knowing you can win without needing to prove it to everyone every time. Schopenhauer believed that the strongest individuals are those who don't rely on external validation. They don't chase praise. They don't demand applause. Their sense of identity isn't shaken by being unrecognized. Why? Because their focus is internal. Their self-worth comes from who they are, not who others say they are. And that kind of grounded confidence is unshakable, a shield against jealousy. One of the most overlooked benefits of humility is how it protects you from the silent poisons of social interaction, jealousy, rivalry, and resentment. When you achieve something, especially if it's extraordinary, people take notice. Some will celebrate you. Others will quietly compare themselves to you. That's human. But what you do next determines whether they grow to respect you or grow to resent you. Humility disarms jealousy. It softens the edges of your success. When people see that you're not rubbing your victories in their face, they're less likely to compete with you and more likely to support you. Schopenhauer's wisdom here is tactical. Modesty isn't just morally admirable. It's socially strategic. It keeps relationships intact. It preserves alliances. It allows your success to feel inspiring rather than intimidating. The silent echo of greatness. The loudest people are often the ones still trying to convince themselves. But truly great? They don't need to convince anyone. Their presence says enough. There's a kind of timeless power in those who succeed quietly. Their legacy isn't written in viral moments, but in consistency, calm, and class. They're the ones who are spoken about with respect long after they've left the room. Humility leaves an echo. It's not flashy, but it's unforgettable. Think of the leaders, mentors, or icons you truly admire. Chances are, it wasn't just their success that impressed you. It was how gracefully they carried it. So, do you still think that being the smartest in the room means sounding the smartest? Or is true intelligence knowing when not to speak? Is real power in being loud or in being measured? Sometimes, the most brilliant move is not to look brilliant at all, because when you're underestimated, you're never overexposed. You move with freedom. You act with precision. And when the time comes, your impact is unstoppable. This is the hidden wisdom of Arthur Schopenhauer, a philosophy that teaches us to lead quietly, grow patiently, and succeed with humility. So, if you're ready to win by not needing to be seen, if you're ready to let your silence build your strength, then you're exactly the kind of person this world needs more of. Like, share and subscribe to join a community of quiet warriors, deep thinkers, and those who know the smartest move isn't always the loudest one. The quiet ones aren't weak. They're waiting. And when their moment comes, the world won't know what hit it.